Hello super friends, and welcome back to another episode of Superhero Saturday, where we talk about the arts of superheroes, storytelling, and so much more. My name is Annie, and in today's video we are coming awfully close to the very end of our History of Superhero Costumes series. And by awfully close, I mean we're literally looking at last decade. If you want to catch up on where we've gotten till this point, you can go check out the other videos in this series on my channel, in the description, in all the places, and you can see different History of Costumes videos for all of the eras of the history of superheroes, dating all the way back to the Golden Age. For now, crank up that MCU intro track and let's get this video started. It still gives me chills. Although it wasn't that long ago, let's brush up on a few major historical markers from the 2010s. In America and worldwide, the economy was still reeling from the housing crisis of 2007 and 2008 and all of its side effects, which earned it the nickname the Great Recession. This led to a series of social pushbacks called the Occupy movements, where people began protesting socioeconomic inequality and calling out megacorporations and other big money entities for disproportionately controlling the world's wealth and therefore the direction of the world's future. At the same time, fear of more economic hardship spurred the election of controversial celebrity businessman Donald Trump as President of the United States, despite his myriad personal shortcomings. On the flip side, though, social awareness became much more prominent in this era, especially in the media, as movements for LGBTQ+ and women's rights continued to push ahead. Better representation in movies, TV shows, and other popular media diversified our collective storytelling and paved the way for better interpersonal relations in the West and beyond. This was spurred ahead by the increased globalization in the world that was made possible by leaps and bounds in technology. Everything was going wireless, and now more than ever, people came to terms with the fact that the world is a much bigger, more kaleidoscopic place than previously imagined. Instead of being tied to physical places and devices with DVDs, CDs, and cable television hookups, people everywhere were streaming the same content on the internet, from Netflix to Disney Plus, and YouTube to Facebook, and Spotify to Apple Music. Not to mention, of course, the booming YouTube culture. And here we are. It was also the birth of one of my personal favorite 2010s inventions, the game of Minecraft, which created a truly international virtual sandbox for gamers to play in together, in whatever ways they could dream up. Of course, we can't talk about international cultural communication without talking about superheroes, because it was truly the age of superhero movies. Marvel took the lead on much of this, of course, starting with the release of Iron Man in 2008 and then building onto this cinematic universe with movie after movie in the same story. Iron Man was followed by Thor, Captain America, the Guardians of the Galaxy, another new take on Spider-Man, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Black Widow, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, and more. This was something that had never been done on this level before, a web of interconnected stories built on multiple feature films. Plus, it was a superhero story! It all ended up in a massive two-part climax at the end of the decade with Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, which premiered with great anticipation around the world and became the highest-grossing film of all time. This boom in popularity and multiple story crossover storytelling wasn't just happening over at Marvel either. In comics, interconnectivity and teamwork were more important than ever. DC even went so far as to reinvent their superhero universe in the comics twice in this decade in order to capture new audiences living in our new world. This was the New 52 and Rebirth story arcs. They also took a stab at their own cinematic universe, although they blazed a different kind of trail than Marvel. Wonder Woman became the first female-led superhero blockbuster that wasn't based on a male character, and their subsequent takes were also similarly more diverse than the traditionally straight white male track that Marvel kind of got stuck in for a little while. As I think is pretty typical of DC from their history, they did much better creative work on TV rather than in the theaters. On the CW, the Arrowverse connected shows as far back as Smallville and as far-ranging as Legends of Tomorrow and Black Lightning. With multiple show crossover events that took place over the course of an entire week, this created a massive collection of stories that pulled in characters with wide-ranging tones, backstories, and reinventions. Overall, the 2010s had a few major trends in superhero storytelling. First, live-action mediums finally had the technology and the perspective to create superhero stories that made sense. Second, having interconnected stories and characters provided more comprehensive universes of content that better reflected the globalization of the decade. And superhero storytelling finally opened up and was popular enough to create more cultural recognition of superhero subgenres. And that is going to lead us into our discussion of superhero costume trends of the 2010s. With the onslaught of so many live-action superhero stories in popular media, it became easier than ever to see that there were different types of superhero stories that couldn't be defined just by the category superhero. There's action-adventure superhero, space and sci-fi superhero, gritty dark superhero, fantasy superhero, historical fiction superhero, superhero comedy. Basically, any genre you can think of, you can tell a superhero story in. That means that costumes aren't all the same campy, colorful, simplistic spandex bodysuits. They now tend to reflect more of their subgenre than ever before. That means a gritty superhero might wear more dark colors, more armor, and more weaponry, as opposed to a space superhero who might don brighter colors, more tech, and maybe more old-school space-age stylings. You'll still find outfits that reflect the near 100 years of historical costumes, but in the 2010s they more often replace the skin-tight spandex with that fake leathery material that looks more durable and slightly less form-fitting? No one really nails down what it's called, but you know what it looks like, because it's everywhere. However, in spite of the continued development of better social progressiveness, there were still a fair number of issues around female superhero costumes at this time. Some of our favorite major Marvel players, like Black Widow, Captain Marvel, and the Wasp, did manage to get full body coverage in their big screen adaptations, if not some tweaks that we would rather they not have done. In the end, though, the Wonder Woman movie did what I think was the best compromise between the character's history, actual historical accuracy, and utility. By this I mean that her costume did look recognizably like Wonder Woman, but it was also stylized armor that served an apparent purpose, and it didn't actually reveal too much when she had all of the pieces assembled. With the whole costume on, we really only see one shoulder, her upper arms, aka her guns, and a little bit above her kneecaps. And the rest of the Amazons in that movie followed suit with realistic armor and a wide variety of actual strong women playing their parts. Unfortunately for us, in their appearances in the Justice League movie and other adaptations, they were definitely a little bit more back into the less positive, more male gaze-y versions. But 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward, I guess? So let's keep trying, DC. Now, with all of that history out of the way, now is the time in this video where I would typically go and redesign 2 of my own superheroes with costumes that would reflect the era that we're studying. However, I actually designed these 2 costumes in the 2010s, so what we're gonna do is just take a look at their costumes and kind of analyze and pull out the elements that we've talked about are popular in superheroes who were designed and seen in this era of superhero history. Our first example is, of course, Cannonball Cooper, who's one of the stars of my own superhero team, the Fearless 9. For his costume, you can see a lot of my influence from heroes like Superman and Captain America. I've got full body coverage, a material I call Wonderwick that falls into our pseudo leather durable cloth choice, and a lot of bright colors that pay homage to the superhero stories of the past. I've also got the logo on the front, but not centered, so that it's got a bit of a modern twist with the tried and true format. For Redemption, it's almost painfully obvious that we've got influences from my main sources of inspiration, which I've talked about a little bit on this channel before, which is Black Widow and Charlie's Angels from the year 2000, both of which I would qualify as spy superhero subgenre flicks, which match Redemption's origin story, and is why they're part of the inspiration. She's got head-to-toe black pleather with just a touch of color distinction in the gold and purple, and a holster that is clearly set so she can whip out her guns whenever she needs to. This costume is simple and straightforward with the option for espionage antics at the ready. And there you have it. That's the history of superhero costumes from the blockbuster era of superhero history and our accompanying designs/redesigns. But wait, does that mean we're at the end of the series? Not so fast! There will be one last video in this series coming at you very soon that will talk about the 2020s so far and the future of superhero storytelling. Stay tuned, super friends! And thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more superheroic content like this one in the future. And if you want to see my own superheroes in action, which include the characters that we've designed / redesigned on this series, you can go to our website at www.fearless9.com and check out my books there. Thanks again, super friends, and we'll see you next time.